Young men are in crisis and nobody seems to care. Off to a good start, actually. At least they're admitting that there is an issue. Now let's see if they actually cue into what the issue is or if they just cope and make excuses. Now, the massive audiences gained by toxic gurus such as Andrew Tate point to a deeper problem in society. I actually kind of agree with that too. I'm not really a fan of the PUA scam. Like you want to learn the PUA way of doing things? Just watch that King of the Hill episode when Bobby learns from Boomhauer how to pick up chicks. Like that's all you need to do. It's literally that. And they charge a lot of money to impart that knowledge onto you too. The liberal left has cried wolf for years. Oh, wow. You admit that too. In the run-up to the current year minus 11 presidential election, they denounced mild-mannered Mitt Romney as a fascist, literally Hitler. So you realize that all this is kind of overplayed by now, right? Nice. I'm impressed so far. And Orange Man proved a rude awakening. Another bit noir was Jordan Peterson, the polite Canadian academic known for dispensing gentle wisdom to young men, make your bed, stand up straight, who was portrayed as the epitome of toxic masculinity. Once again, more sinister figures were waiting in the wings. There may be some disagreement, but this is actually the smart opinion right here. It's like, wait a minute, we spent so much time demonizing the most milquetoast people on the other side that we had nothing to hit the actual more extreme ones with. Like, I wasn't expecting even this level of self-awareness, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm blown away. I am legitimately shocked at the level of self-awareness I'm seeing. I'm not used to this. Now, until recently, many of us were blessedly unaware of the existence of Andrew Tate. And then as soon as you became aware of him, you got him deplatformed from everything. The kickboxer turned millionaire influencer or effluencer who was arrested in Romania last month. He stands accused of shocking crimes. Accused. Trafficking whammons and forcing them to produce pornographic content, which he denies. Yet he has also amassed a vast following among young men. Before being shut down, his TikTok account had garnered more than 11 billion views, and last year he was one of the most Googled people on the planet. How badly have we failed our young men if someone like Tate is their idol? If only you asked this question a decade ago, things would have been very different. But you guys have demonized and, like you said at the beginning, cried wolf so many times. Like, these guys call Jordan Peterson literally Hitler. We can't take what they say seriously. No surprise that he appeals to teenagers despite his 36 years. Tate appears fundamentally never to have grown up and often sounds more like an insecure boy. Now, this sounds like petty jealousy, by the way, because guess what? Tate, his current legal issues aside, he has more money than you ever will. He never has to work again a day in his life. He doesn't need to, quote unquote, grow up. Growing up, quote unquote, is for people who need to earn their own way in life. You need to grow up and accept reality as it is. And, how many more sayings can we go through? Pull yourself up by the bootstraps and all that shit. Growing up is basically taking responsibility for yourself. And if you have dependents on them too. He doesn't need to do that. He's already a multimillionaire. As long as he doesn't blow his money like an idiot, which he might do, I don't know. It doesn't matter that he sounds like an insecure boy. He doesn't need to be anything else. He's already made. I'm too smart to read, he announces. Yeah, sure you are, Andrew. Oh, no, this I always find funny too. Like when someone who is a self-made millionaire says, I'm too smart for this, and then people who are living, definitely struggling in life, like, yeah, sure, you're smart. Well, smarter than you at least. I need action. I need constant chaos. I need to be driving a supercar and fucking fighting fucking a bunch of hoes. That, I think, is part of his act. Although it might be real too. Again, he doesn't need to be anything else. Like He already has a mountain of money. He doesn't. Why would he care? No, he offers a vision of eternal boyhood, a life free of responsibility, no past, no future, no hinterland, just the fleeting enjoyment of the here and now. Hedonism, yeah, that's what that's called. Not that Tate objects to parenthood per se. He recently claimed to have fathered more than 10 children. Peterson then plays Romney to Tate's Trump, the former promoting self-discipline, the latter championing disturbing, utterly self-serving philosophy. Once again, you're right, but you should have realized this years ago. It's too late now. Like, especially once guys go down the path of, they give up on society and they focus on just their own happiness. There's no coming back from that. Yeah, Tate is best viewed as a radical preacher, a ghastly mixture of the frat house and the madrasa. Misogyny drips from every utterance. That's another word for truth to the left. Whammons, he says, belong to men, while men should be allowed multiple wives. Like Chaucer's pardoner hawking fake relics, his lifestyle can be emulated for a price. Until recently, you could subscribe to his Hustlers University self-help scheme for $50 a month. Make money, get girls. It's that simple. I mean, $50 a month, I got to say, that's way cheaper than a lot of PUAs charge. Yeah, I thought it would be way higher than that. So as Tate's rise shows, sexism remains all too culturally prevalent. Well, you realize people like Tate they're a response to the sexism of the far left. The blatant misandry of feminism. You think you weren't going to get an equal but opposite reaction? But he is also perhaps a symptom of another problem. Once again, I'm glad you're finally realizing this. Now, there's a crisis in how men, particularly young men, see themselves and how society views them. That last one is the most important one. If you grew up, like from the moment you were in preschool to the moment you got out of college, and you had to hear about how you are evil, you're responsible for all the bad in the world, you're toxic, you're a potential rapist and pedophile, you are the scum of the earth, you're the reason women suffer. What do you think that might do to the psychology of a young man? You think that's gonna make them want to sacrifice for a society that hates their guts? I don't. A recent viral video gives a striking example. An interviewer poses two simple questions to passers-by in London. What are women good for and what are men good for? Without exception, respondents, male and female, describe women as hypercompetent, brilliant, girl boss types. They're basically lying through their teeth, yet they're universally disparaging or silent on the role of men. Without extrapolating too much from the single vox pop, the unanimity is remarkable. No, it's not. So this is just like when Jay Leno did his jaywalking segments. And yeah, it was pretty embarrassing how dumb people were. I'm going to walk on this college campus and ask basic questions, and we'll see how stupid these college kids are. But what people need to realize is they ask like 300 people and they only show the 10 dumbest ones. They probably did the same thing in this video. Like they only showed the dumbest people because that's the point they were trying to make. So I wouldn't take any of this too seriously. So it points to a prevailing view of men as useless and problematic. Yeah, and it's because society views men this way that men just shrug and say, fuck society. I'm just going to focus on my own happiness, even if it comes at society's expense. They're going to hate my guts anyway. May as well give them a reason to. So for centuries, society has grappled with the question of what to do with restless young men. In Shakespeare's Winter's Tale, the wise shepherd laments, I would there be no age between 10 and 3 and 20, or that youth would sleep out the rest, for there is nothing in between that but getting wenches with child, wronging the ancientry, stealing and fighting. Yet modernity presents a unique blend of circumstances, unsavory gurus, and a readily available technology. Male body image crisis. Whose fault is that? Gender reversal and indoctrination in the workforce. Whose fault is that? I talk about that way too much on my channel. Now that really is toxic masculinity. So do you low-key admit that toxic masculinity was a creation of the far left? Are you admitting that you guys made them toxic? I mean, I would be surprised if you were at that level of self-awareness. The younger boys no longer enjoy many of the traditional milestones of development, with fewer fathers living at home, fewer jobs that can sustain a family. Well, then there's also the fact, like, again, I cover this a lot. When from a man's perspective, they keep stripping away the benefits we got and the rewards we got for taking on these risks, and they keep piling on more risks, more costs. If you took a 10% pay cut at your job every week, at the same time, they were also increasing the amount of time you're expected to work by 10%. You might put up with it for a week or two out of desperation because you don't know what else to do. But eventually, every last one of you would hit a point when enough is enough. Like, you realize that you're working 100 hours a week for like $2. Like, why am I doing this? That's basically what it's like to be a man in current year. All these traditionally male things that they're lamenting we don't do anymore, like, they've basically jacked the costs of those so high that, as Barbarossa used to say back in the day, the juice ain't worth the squeeze anymore. And then they act like it's our fault that we walked away from a raw deal. Like, how would you guys react if you were in the situation I just described? Like, you were constantly getting pay cuts while your workload kept increasing and you quit. And then everyone around you like acted like it's your fault, like you did something wrong. That's what it's like to be a dude in current year. Right. In the 1960s, my granddad could support a wife and 2 children on a bank clerk's salary. Today, an alarming number of young men cannot even exist independently. Now, you want to know what caused a lot of that? So in the 1960s, how many women were there that this guy, your granddad, had to compete with for a bank clerk's salary? Because you realize one unintentional side effect of women just in mass being accepted into the workforce is a doubling of the workforce. So now you created a situation where men have to compete with women for jobs. And since the workforce is twice the size, employers could afford to pay half as much too. You flooded the market with a deluge of supply, which lowered demand to the point that it became a problem. Now, 27% of men still live with their parents at age 27 compared to only 13% of women's. Can we count the women that live with their boyfriends or husbands and don't have a job? I wonder how high that number would be. Contemporary culture has alarmingly had little to say about these developments. Questions about men's changing function in society are most often answered with guff about making men happier with traditional feminine roles. Or my favorite, start teaching men to live for themselves. Like, another old manosphere saying, women are human beings, men are human doings. I think the healthiest thing for a man is to break out of that mindset, because, like, if you ask the vast majority of men, what are you? What do you identify as? They immediately go towards their job or some function they provide for other people. So if you take that away from them, what else is left? Now, I suspect Tate's caveman ideas are practically appealing at a time where we're often prevented from discussing biological differences in sex at all. Wow, that's a pretty transphobic thing to say. All right, then there is what the social theorist Rob Henderson calls luxury beliefs. In public, elites preach anarchic values, critiquing marriage, claiming all family structure and are created equally. Yet privately, they opt for small C conservative ideals. Just as tech moguls invariably ensure their offspring can enjoy screen-free childhoods, stable marriages, and two-parent households are the norm in elite liberal circles. It's almost as if they're just sabotaging the rest of us on purpose, so they will have an advantage, huh? No, instead, we need more focus on the contentment associated with love and family, the positive aspects of masculinity. Well, first, you need to walk back a lot of the tacked on risks and downsides that you've been adding to this. The risk taking, gallantry, duty. Now, all of the above are great if they have an equivalent reward that's worth it. Like I mentioned in a previous video, most men are more than happy to slave away and sacrifice themselves for society. And all they expect in return to keep doing that is just a little bit of basic respect. But even that is too much to ask in modern society. Well, why would we respect the toxic misogynist? Okay. Don't be surprised when these toxic misogynists start focusing on their own happiness and leave you to your fate. So to highlight alongside the relentlessly negative, we need better role models such as rugby star Courtney Laws, who has championed the institution of marriage, or footballer Bukayo Saka, who often speaks about the importance of his Christian faith, and of course the brave young men who are being put to death in Iran every day fighting for their sisters. So once again, it's what we should be showing these men. Oh, this is what you need to strive for. Yeah, you see all those guys who are being executed for women's sake? You need to be more like that. Oh, man. There were some bits of self-awareness in this article, but as expected, just completely falls apart at the end. And one thing is clear, we can no longer ignore the chaotic gulf at the heart of so many young men's lives. When serious people retreat from conversations, grifters and charlatans will fill the void. Oh, now this last part in particular, this is basically what I've been advocating for, actually. Like, especially when you're dealing with the far left and it's obvious they're just trying to get you deplatformed. Don't even talk to them. Don't have a conversation with them. Just block them. Unless you have something to gain from an argument with them. Now, this in general, this is a skill that men in particular, but women would benefit from this too, honestly. This is a skill that seems lost in current year. Stop picking fights that you have nothing to gain from and everything to lose from. In typical RGE fashion, you want to know who we could compare this to? Our boy Wings of Redemption. You could say that the turning point of his career, if you want to call it that, was when he talked way too much shit and ended up getting stuck in that Call of Duty match with Syndicate, and Syndicate whooped his ass. And that was the beginning of the end for him. And then when you look back at that situation, I mean, why? Why did he pick that fight? Like, yeah, they both played Call of Duty, but they had different specializations. They were in different arenas. Even if he had beaten Syndicate, he would have gained nothing for it because that was his area of expertise, allegedly. Like, yeah, of course you won. This is what you're the expert on. It's no surprise. And yet, if Syndicate won, he had everything to lose. It's like, wait, you just got whooped by the guy you were talking mad shit to on your own home turf, basically. And that's exactly what happened to him. If he did not pick that stupid-ass fight, he may have been able to drag his career out a little bit further. It wasn't his fault. His controller broke. Well, he even said, I broke my controller. Remember that? So this is a lesson that everyone needs to learn. All of you listening right now, I don't care if you hate my guts. You need to learn this lesson. Like, stop picking pointless fights. Like, it's not just the usual advice. Don't pick fights you can't win. Don't pick fights that you don't gain anything from if you win them. And yet, well, at the same time, what you stand to lose if you lose the fight is astronomical. No, don't do that. This is one of the biggest problems I see in just all around in our society. Like, just people picking fights for the sake of fighting. Well, you're a coward if you don't respond to me. I don't care. I'll just block you and I'll never hear from you again. Like, I'm not going to bother wasting my limited time fighting people when there is no benefit to me. Like, what do I get if I win this fight? Oh yeah, I showed that internet rando who's wrong on the internet. Gain nothing for it. I'm not wasting my time on this shit. Don't ever fight anyone unless you have a reason to, unless you stand to gain from it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your energy, man.